Good evening, everyone, especially those participants online. Welcome to the second of the CGA-DHL Culture Heritage Lecture Series. And today I'm very happy to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Liu Yan. So first I will do an introduction of Dr. Liu. So actually, this is the third time Dr. Liu visits NYU Shanghai. The first time was in 2020 when I just joined NYU Shanghai and it was during a pandemic, and asked Dr. Liu to do an online, like a Zoom, like a lecture for the class. And Dr. Liu actually advised our student, who is also here today, to make this woven arch bridge, which I will talk about. That's also one of Dr. Liu's research area. So, and then the last time was the ACAD conference, I think last year. So, but this is probably also the first time Dr. Liu is here today and to share with us his research. So Dr. Liu Yan is an architecture historian. He has received his doctoral degree in engineering on building archaeology at Technical University of Munich, Germany. He works now as an associate professor at Kunming University of Science and Technology in Kunming, Yunnan. Specialized in traditional timber construction and Chinese religious architecture, he is the author of the book, Woven Arch Bridge, Histories of Constructional Thoughts. This book, this is a Chinese version, but the English version was first published by Routledge in 2021. It has hardback and the paperback and electronic version. I'm mentioning this is because my book only got the hardcover, which means not many people bought it. So I'm jealous that Dr. Liu's book got a paperback. Because this book focuses on the woven arch bridge and arch-shaped structure, as you just showed today, that is one of the most extraordinary timber building traditions of the world. The Chinese version, Bianzhi Gongqiao, which published by Tsinghua University, I think that was after a few years, this book has won a national prize for a architecture book. So it's one of the best book of this decade, I can say. So reading this book, you will also find Dr. Liu is an unconventional writer as an historian. The introduction of this book begins with cinematographic language. It's like, if this is a movie trailer, you will see the woven arch bridge from Renaissance Europe, because you mentioned Da Vinci, right? And to 1898 San Francisco, and then to the new millennium Beijing. So his writing is also very unconventional as a historian. And Dr. Liu is not only an expert on the physical form of bridge, he has also devoted his heart to the intangible form of bridge. As we talked earlier today, translations. Translating scholarly work is like 为爱发电. It's like you generate electricity using love. If you do translation, you know what I'm talking about. So he translated wood and wood joints, building traditions of Europe, Japan, China, by the very famous German, he's Austrian scholar Klaus Swagger. Our library has that book, which in my opinion is an untranslatable book. And also this one, Prip-Møller's Chinese Buddhist Monastery, which is forthcoming and that we will discuss today. And he is also a main contributor to the ARCAD project, which we have been working together for years. So you will probably see Dr. Liu also on social media, channels like Yixi, Youfang, there are many social media channels. And Bilibili is right now doing a documentary on Dr. Liu's work. So yeah, so I think he will be, he's already very popular. Yeah, so, and I also want to introduce today's commentator, which is our own area head and a clinical associate professor of the writing program, Professor Chen Ling. And Chen's primary area of specialization is Chinese Western comparative poetics. Trained as a literary comparatist, he aims to both in teaching and research to promote deep cultural dialogues between China and the West. So as a faculty and area head of a global China studies, I find today's session is especially as global as China. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Liu Yan.
Many thanks to Lala and for the invitation and for the introduction. And many thanks to the Center of Global Asia for giving me this opportunity to share my work and my thinking of these years. So today I'm going to share with you one of my beloved person, my tutor actually, although he has passed away long ago, before I was born. His name is Prip-Møller, and he's a Danish architect who did the first ever monography study, systematic study on Chinese Buddhist monasteries. And today, this title, Prip-Møller and one of his key example, Baohuashan Huijusi. So I'm sharing his writing strategy, and my understanding during my translation of this work. So first, what do you imagine when you think of Chinese Buddhist monasteries? Is there anyone who would like to share? So when we talk about Chinese Buddhist monasteries, what do the normal people think of? So maybe I just share some time. Maybe you think of the main hall, the Bodhisattva, and the pagoda, like this kind of things, the monumental architecture. And if you were to study it, how would you approach to this research and writing? And I think, well, doing this translation is actually the main period of doing this translation was during my PhD study in Germany. So I also learned from Prip-Møller how to do a monograph of my own. It's almost like his own doctor thesis, although it's not doctor thesis, but it's some kind of the same scale. So I think he taught me that, and this is the general principle for doing all kinds of study. So we have to combine the extensive field investigation and the in-depth case study. It is not the only road, but it is a very effective road to make a thorough study for some unknown object. So with extensive field investigation, we will capture the comprehensive understanding of this type of this object. And with this in-depth case study, we have a thorough understanding of the function of how it works. But following the question, so how would you define the scope of field investigation? When we're facing like monasteries, there are thousands of them maybe in China, or when we're facing some other type of studies. So we can't just name all of them. So how do you define the scope? How do you pick the examples when you do research? And for this, one or just a pair of the in-depth case study, how to select the example. So this is what I'm going to share with you today about Prip-Møller's work and what I learned from him. And especially, his research is not today. It's in the late 1920s to the early 1930s. It was the time before the Foguangsi was discovered. Maybe there are some some of you maybe have some architectural backgrounds, so knowledge that Foguangsi is the first ever Tang Dynasty building known by the scholars ever. And it was at the outset of the journey, it was even before the Dule-Si was found. So these two names are the most significant early Chinese Buddhist temples known to scholars. So at this stage of research, Prip-Møller don't have the background knowledge that we have today. He don't have the general network of reimagining the monasteries of their location and the timeline in China. So it was the first ever monograph on Chinese Buddhist monasteries. So what approach would you take, or had he take? So that is him. His full name is Johannes Prip-Møller. He's Danish architect, and he born in the late 19th century and passed away in the middle of 20th century at the age of 54. And this grand book, you can see from the shade here. So this is a normal book. The brighter part is a normal book. So this book is really, really huge. It's a grand book in every aspect. And so when he set up for his journey in China, for the investigation, he had to decide for his scope and to select his case. And he took some really unusual choices that we see from today, and it's also unusual at his time. So it was unusual scope of field and unusual case selection. So this is a map of his trip in China. So sure, he has visited Beijing, the capital city of that time, and he has visited Datong. It was at the time already known for some Song dynasty and Jin dynasty early monastic buildings. But most of his his trips has went through the southern part, especially lower Yangtze River of China. Shanghai, Nanjing, he made a lot of trips along the Yangtze River and Hangzhou, and then Ami and Canton. So this is the monastery list in his book. I arranged them in their appearance in the book. It's not by the province. But you can see from this list that he mentioned some northern examples, but most of them are the very early grottos, the early relics. But most of the monasteries here in this list are from the source. So this is unconventional, and this is actually criticized by his contemporary Chinese scholars because he abandoned this known, famous, or grand temples in the north. And he actually explained this in his preface. He said that he has focused his study in the central China and the Yangtze Valley because in this place, Buddhism is in a more flourishing condition here today. And then the more beautiful, but also better known and much more empty monasteries of the north. So he deliberately chose South China instead of the more famous North China to carry out his study. And why? Here is his explanation. The aim of this research is in between of the monastic frames, the buildings, and the life within it. So with this functionalistic aspect has led his research into his field. So when we look into this book, the Chinese name 中原佛寺图考 indicating 中原 actually is indicating the Han area, Han people area, the Chinese Buddhist monasteries, but with the subtitle, their plan and its function as a siting for Buddhist monastic life. So he focused on the layout and the function of the entire physical structure. But all this architecture, all these architectural objects only seen as a siting, a background for his real study of the Buddhistic monastic life. So we can form it in an equation. In his understanding, the monastery is not just monastery architecture, but is plan plus function, but is to aid in the most important aspect, the monastic life. So life is a key word for his research. So he really started out from a rather unusual, unconventional observation standpoint. So let's put it together again. So the Buddhist monastery could be understood as two main parts: the layout and composition of a monastery, the physical frame, and how it functions for living inside this frame. So why he holds this kind of unconventional, at least from today's our discipline's view, unconventional standing point? This is actually root back to his professional identity. He is not just a scholar. His first identity as career is a Christian missionary. He came to China as an architect, but to work for the church, to build hospitals, church donations, hostels, everything serving the church. And by the meantime, he is a practical architect. So comparing with Liang Sicheng, Liu Dunzhen, all the 营造学社 scholars, those are mainly pure scholars. They do only design on require of the nation, but their main job is to research. But Prip-Møller, his standing point is a practical architect serving for the church. So this is one of his known work in Shenyang, where he started his job in the early 1920s. When he first arrived in China, he stayed in Peking and then worked in Shenyang for several years, working as architects. And later, this work has already gone, but this one is still there in Hong Kong. This is the Baohuashan, a Buddhist monastery lacked Christian church, and today it's a Christian study institute, and takes the form of his main example, main Chinese monastery example. So, okay, so we realize that he has rather different standing point and the methodology towards the architectural study. So how it works. So I will show you an example quickly of how he studied function for this monastic life. So another question, what is the key building in a Chan monastery? So Chan is also good to understand the Zen school. So what is the key building for Chan monastery? Do you have any idea? Sorry? Fangzhang. Okay, Fangzhang is the room for the abbot. It's really important. But when we indicate Chan, is there something special? Because Fangzhang is in every school. Yeah, it's a really good point. But maybe think I just saved the time. So this is also elaborate example in his book, Chengdu Xindu Baoguangsi. It's just 20. Jiangtang is also important. Yeah, yeah, the lecture hall. Yeah. Yeah, 大殿 is yes. Batang. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. These are all very important. Yeah, the buildings. So this is a case. Oh, just realizing maybe we can 就是能不能关掉前面的灯？好像这个有点暗。Okay, yeah, much better. Thank you. So this is Chan School Monastery, Grand One in Chengdu, and yes, we can look through quickly. Sorry, this is in Chinese. What do we know about it? So it starts from the spirit wall, gateway, and the Heavenly King, the hall of the Heavenly King who work as guardians, and then a pagoda. The pagoda is in the front. This is quite rare from earlier layout. And then the first a hall for Buddhas, for a group of Buddhas, and then the great hall, the main hall for ceremony, and then the library. And this is the central access of a monastery that we normally visit. This is accessible for the visitors. And for Chengdu Baoguangsi, they also is famous for the Luohan Tang and the additional Yufo Dian attaching for it. This is only for really grand and rich monasteries for the tourism. But when we talk about Chan monastery, they should have a special hall or special space for meditation. That is Chan. So meditation hall. So at least it's among the most important ones. And the meditation hall, look right here. So it's very fair for you not mentioning it because it's not accessible. It's private. It's blocked for the visitors. We normally don't have such kind of experience visiting a Chan hall, a Chan Tang. So this place. So we look at it on the plan of Prip-Møller. This Chan Tang is not only at the literal group, but only accessed from a very rounded way. You have to round and small, this quite the small gate hidden in the corner to have access in this group. But inside, there's a huge courtyard, a self-sufficient courtyard. And Prip-Møller has really shed a lot of light on the Chantang. In the first chapter, the entire chapter talks about all these buildings along the central axis. And he gives such almost 1/3 of the length describing the content of Chantang. We have quick look through. Sorry, I put this in Chinese. I read it faster. So first, he discussed the location of Chantang. Chantang is always normally isolated from the main group. Sometimes it's located at the bottom, at the ground floor of Fatang or of the library. But in that case, they will be blocked by some walls. They have to be kept private. But in larger monasteries, they are just, like in Baohuashan, they are placed at lateral and their entrance is hidden. They are formed an enclosed courtyard, a secluded courtyard. These photos are taken by Prip-Møller in his time in early 1930s. And when I visited in 2014, it almost looked exactly the same. Yeah. So the first is the location, it's isolated. And then Prip-Møller referred to the classics, the Buddhist sutras, to search for the idea of this meditation hall. So it is actually from the very beginning, from the early sutras and different sutras, when people talking about this meditation, it will talks about how they do this and how they will carry it out in a separate or isolated place. And he then checked through the literature for the first Chan school monasteries and how they describe their life and their layout inside of these monasteries. And then he checked the dwellings of the early Chan hermits. Because when the Chan school appeared, they do not really appear with a very elaborated monastery, but this kind of school starts from the isolated hermits. And when they form the group, they become stronger. The school appears. So he checked the dwellings of the early hermits. And then even today, when schools or when monasteries, when Buddhism has been very much developed, there are still some detached huts for meditation, additional or attached to larger monastery systems. And it exists as some kind of phenomenon of the heritage of an early stage. And then he go back to the monk's life in the modern monastery, and because these monks should not have possessions, but they only have some lawful possessions for their very necessary life. So they check his discussion on the lawful possessions is actually discuss of the monk's lifestyle today in the modern monastery. So he checked there's only 18 cans of essentials for the monks according to the law. And then finally, he turned into the interior of a modern meditation hall. It takes form of a very spacious hall, and all the monks will sit on the bench surrounding this inner space and have their meditation. They will sit there for hours. And this room is quite really spacious. So this is his photo, and this is when I visited about 10 years ago. It has already rebuilt maybe many times, but still looks the same. And very interesting, all these monks are sit there in their crossed position or lotus position. And there's a very interesting detail of this meditation hall. The pillars, how they arrange these pillars. So this is a very rare drawing for Prip-Møller because normally he just draw plans or sections indicating the layout of the monastery. But this time he drew this perspective drawing to showing the arrangement of a group of pillars. So in the meditation hall, the pillars are not arranged in the common crosswise frames. So normally you have a frame that has the shape of a gable, and you have pillars and beams, they will frame a crosswise, two-dimensional frame. But in the meditation hall, the pillars are centered in the middle, in a group, or in a circle, to make room for the rest of the hall, to make it a rather spacious room. And today, when we visit together, it has already been rebuilt. And the central group of pillars takes the form of a shrine, but still holding the same principle. And this is a very interesting drawing because since this is a very rare example when Prip-Møller talks about timber construction. So this drawing is cited by many reviewers when they talk about Prip-Møller's contribution, because normally we will expect a writer to talk about the timber construction, but this is not the main focus for Prip-Møller. But why he mentioned about these pillars? Because the range of pillars is actually making room for the meditation life or practice. The monks are not only sitting there to think, to think, to rest, but they also to have some physical exercise, normally after dinner, after lunch. So during this exercise, they will lie in different groups, and under the instruction of the leading monk, they will walk or run inside this room, take the round of these circles. So this is almost a kind of playground for the monks, for their physical health. So this is today, this photo is from internet, showing that with the monks and with some Jushi, the believers, they are doing this kind of exercise. And when I visit, there's only one monk living there. And he's still, just himself, he's still doing this exercise, walking fast around this spacious room. And Prip-Møller also draws the leading monks with their board. When he can make pace, or he can simply punish the man who is not working in the right pace. So when Prip-Møller's focus is on the structure, he's actually still focusing on the function and how the monks use this space of this structure. The structure is the frame for the life and for the practice, for the unmaterial living here. And then he makes a very detailed documentation of a meditation hour. And it is actually taken from after the lunch. He knows every monk's position and movement, including the leading monks who supervise him. He describes how these leading monks take turn overseeing the practice, and even mentions a sleepy monk who was punished for dozing off. Okay, so this is an example to say how Prip-Møller make research or study architectural unit. So a monastic unit is a combination of the location, the architectural form, the function, and the origin, early forms, and the various forms relating to the function, and the daily usage observation. So this makes his observation quite unconventional from his contemporary architectural scholars. So in this idea, he arranged the entire book in this frame. So the first two chapters, he gives up under his extensive field investigation, he used dozens, about 60 monasteries to lay out a general profile of a typical Buddhist monastery. So the first chapter is along the central axis. The second chapter is the lateral groups. And we can see inside the central lines, it includes some something that is easy to understand. It's about, for example, the aspects, the spirit walls, bell and dome towers, all the elements, the guidance, and different Buddhas and their guidance, 大殿 and 罗汉堂, and some buildings along this. But also he mentions this talking about Chan, the meditation hall, and Fangzhang, he used the same structure to talk from the origin to the development and to the usage. And also, even he included the halls for the sick and aged. In the second, so he literally observed and writes about every corner of the monastery. And in the second chapter, it talks about the lateral groups. It's normally unvisible for the common visitors. So it includes patronage hall and dining halls, guest department, and the 500 罗汉堂, but also include kitchens, bathing department, toilets, and farming buildings, and Ta, the pagoda for the common past monks, and the cremation ovens also, and the caves, hells. So he documents every detail of the monastic life in the second, in the first two chapters. So after this observation wall, we can reframe or re-understanding a typical Buddhist monastery in several aspects or several layers of space. This is the most common one. This is a tourist or public space when we visit the monastery. That's our visiting route. The central row and the special hall that invite guests to visit and to enjoy the space. And this kind of public space is also the sacred space. The sacred layer is higher up and it's reached to its peak at the very bottom of it, at the very last of it. And then since the monastery is only not serving the visitors, it's a accommodation school for monks. So there is a religious practice space to the monks who live inside it. So they do not enter a monastery from outside, but they live in a circle. The circle is circled in the day or in the year or in this monastic life. So the religious practice space include the places when they pray and the places when they take lectures from seniors and where they take meditation and where they take their dinner and all this school workplace. And it also includes the administration space for this kind of monk school to take a range of this entire monastery, including Fangzhang, and including, for example, Kufang, where they store food and store the treasured things, and including a kitchen also, and also some reception space. When the inner life is communicated with the outer life, they will receive visitors. The visitors will donate. Also will receive the farmers. They will hand over their what is that? 就是 farmers 交租子。Yeah. They will hand over the tax to the monasteries. Monastery is also the large farmers 地主 at that time. So in this aspect, we can separate a monastery into three layers. The one is the earth expression of the spirit world, where the god has their seat. The monastery is the establishment of earthly god, of a heaven god on earth. And it's the pilgrimage destination for the followers, for they to visit, and the accommodating school for the monks. So yeah, under this this standing point, Prip-Møller first, after his first two characters, he summarized a kind of ideal monastery by countless examples, about 60 examples around in China. And he describes this kind of ideal monastery. And this ideal monastery is although I am elaborated with one example, but to Prip-Møller, it is not explained by any single example. Just like nirvana cannot be explained except by negatives and by describing what it is not. We cannot describe the ideal monastery. And only by this, by putting together all these clues, all these phenomena of countless monasteries, that this true Buddhist monastery could be seen, could only expose itself in front of the viewers. So when he finally gives a list of this ideal monastery, we can say it is not just Buddha house. It includes every function, every duty, or every even dogs, cats, and even for the sheep and the pigs, even for animals, everything, every corner, every detail of monastic life. And thereafter, he sees the entire monastery as a living organism, that everything working together. The kitchen serves as a stomach, and the central access serves as the heart. The entire monastery works as an animal or as the Buddha itself, and they to fit together and function together. Okay, so this is his first step to describe the ideal monastery, and then the in-depth case study and what he selects. So we have already named his selection from the title of our lecture. But have any of you ever heard of this Baohuashan Longchang-si? Baohuashan, at his time, Huijusi. Have any of you heard of it? I see someone, yeah, shaking his hand, no one knocking. Any hand up? Have anyone heard of it before? No, it is not a famous one. This is the famous monasteries, the 4 sacred mountains of Buddhism. They have their own cosmos. And Baohuashan, Longchang today, or Huijusi at Prip-Møller's time, locates in Jiangsu, just not far from Nanjing, and is not has such a name as these sacred mountains. But why Prip-Møller picked this one for his case study? So maybe we change our think of directions. Maybe it is not the name it works. So what would you think is the most important characteristic for a Buddhist monastery? So when you choose a case for your study, how would you think of it? How would you name it? How do you select it? What is your standard criteria for doing that? Especially from Prip-Møller's point, maybe for the scholar's point, maybe you found a real celebrate one. But Müller, he focused on function. And Müller, he focused on life. And for function of life, maybe the event occurring in the monastery could decide. So what is the most significant event for a monastery? Any idea? Sorry, prayer. Prayer, yes, is really important for everyday routine for the practice. And there are other answers. Sorry, reciting. So it's also, I think, yeah, prayer is for the visitors, or maybe, and reciting is for the monks only. Both of them are the daily routines. And some other aspects? Is there other aspects? I think just save time. Okay, yeah. 那就可能还是在我说的这个 daily routine 里边， 他们的日常的这个修行里边。Yes, it's very important, this daily routine. But when we talk an event, so yeah. Buddha's birthday, yes, it's very important. Thank you. Yes, yeah. So actually, when we talk something most significant, we still have to ask, what is your standing point? So the different standing points give different answers. So for architecture researchers who will try to fund the establishment of the monastery as a building process. And for pilgrims, it's Buddha's birthday. Yes, they go there for celebrate. It's the largest festival of the year. And for believers, maybe they have some ceremony for themselves or their pathway relations. So maybe the soul ceremony. And for monks, what is for monks? Daily routines. And if we talk about an event, it's ordination. It's a school entrance examination. Yes, when you get your monkhood. So that is definitely the first event, and then you have the everyday routines. Yeah. So on this, in this aspect, this Baohuashan Huijusi or Longchang Si was and is the foremost legalistic school monastery for ordination in Jiangnan and actually in the entire China. Okay, so that gives one reason that Prip-Møller chose this example. But he still is an architect researcher. The status inside the Buddhism society is still not deciding. There must be some architectural reasons and convincing ones to have this selection. But this monastery, well, from most of the Chinese colleagues' understanding, is less of interesting. Because at that time, late at the Republic of China's time, the monastery has suffered significant damage or almost destroyed during the Taiping Tianguo rebellions at the late Qing dynasty, and was largely rebuilt in local vernacular style. So it looks, if I do not mention it, this is a Buddhist temple, you could even have a guess as ancestral hall, so it looks too vernacular for a trained architectural eye. But in Prip-Møller's book, he has altogether 6 chapters. He has entirely the rest 4 chapters talking about Huijusi, Longchang Si Day. So the first chapter is about architecture description and the history of the construction and the ordination unit and ceremonies and the daily life. So it includes everything that we discussed. He took 2/3 of the entire book almost entirely on this one monastery. Is that really worthy? Is that really worthy of his attention? Is it worthy of the statues in the first ever monograph on Chinese monastery? Okay. So Prip-Møller gives his answers. So he sees a monastery as a living organism, and on the background of the first 2 chapters, and against this kind of background, he said, these rather unusual features of the plan of Huijusi could reveal itself. And only on understanding of the general rules that we can finally understanding the rather orthodox plan type this example expresses. So how orthodox is this example? Okay, we will have a quick visit in that temple. So this temple is right here, and here is Nanjing city. So it's about, here is already in Jurong, another county, and it's about 20 kilometers from a main city. This is a very important distance of a grand monastery because it is within a one-day trip, even in the traditional travel method. So means for the rich citizens who can travel to this monastery and make their donation or have their ceremony just in one-day trip. But it is also isolated enough, hidden from the daily lives of a big city. And here is also the rare mountainous area around the lower Yangtze area. So these mountains are named as Baohuashan, the literally treasured flower mountain, or indicating the lotus flower. So the monasteries gathered here mentioned these inter-mountains are shaped like the flower enclosed its calyx, and like the lotus has its lotus pod. So when we have a look on this entire layout, it has the same form, just like a lotus, and enclosing a lotus pod in the center of the entire structure. And this is the structure, this aerial photo taken in the 1990s. But today it's already gone. The landscape is destroyed, quite a pity. I just saved that photo from here. And this is still an early satellite image of the entire shape. So we can already notice the shape is unconventional, right? You can see it is not the same. It's quite different from a conventional, extra line, and the three lines of group of layout of the monasteries that we familiar. So this is, we already notice, even from the first glance, it's unique. And Prip-Møller has spent quite some text describing the winded roads from the downhill train station to the top of the mountain. And when it came rounded across a small pond and walk past the hidden wall and some earthy gold shrines, and suddenly the gate appeared at the end of a spacious courtyard, not 这个就不能叫 courtyard, platform, and this gate is also quite unique. It's quite tall, but quite narrow. Normally, if a gate appears in the center, it's a huge one. It's showing a welcoming position. But this one, the gate, is only positioned at a rather sideways place and with a rather narrow and humble position. So this is where the gate sits. It's not in the center, but at the side and quite narrow from the plan. This is how it looked around the year 2000. The gate, although narrow, although small, but is still elaborate from the entire design. But today it's a little bit boring. But everything's becoming boring today. They just, people today are really good at destroying the wonderful landscapes of what our ancestors leave us. So here is the gate. It's rather small. And by looking, it's not working. And by looking inside, when we walk inside this entrance, after passing through, you will find a very narrow courtyard, almost like an alley. And this is our view from the gate. So a visitor could easily get lost. So at the end of this alley, there is a screen, almost to create a barrier, blocked our eyesight. So you can't tell where the alley will lead you when you first step into this monastery. And only when you step forward, and do you notice that there are two side passages on either side of this screen. Both are very small, narrow archways, and that lead to hidden secrets or unexpected destinations. The archway to the right is more alluring. So it first draws you in through a dark and enclosed alley, leading to the endless with archways and pillars stretching out, hinting at a vast bright space behind. So we take this road, and suddenly we unexpectedly immersed ourselves into a large courtyard. This is really a huge courtyard, maybe 5 or 6 times larger than the normal courtyard, larger than the courtyard in the Baoguangsi. So in case that you have already lost your way, this plan illustrates how we get through this small alley and then turn right, and through this dark alley, and then expose us into this central courtyard, the looter's port. And then we face the main hall at the front center of the courtyard. And yes, the courtyard is surrounded by 2-storied buildings, creating this spacious area. And it's also enclosed with the arch and pillars lining around and creating an intriguing shift in resin and the interplay of the light, and contribute to a captivating gray space. So this is the so-called gray space, is a favorite of architect. This ramps of pillars, ramps of the change of light, indicating a grand architectural interest. And also borrowed from the local vernacular architecture, the so-called horse-shaped gable, 马头墙或者烽火墙, the wind gable of the arch, enrich the profile and its intriguing architectural features along the courtyard. Okay, this is one center of the monastery. And we will save some time visiting the inside the main halls around the courtyard, and let's go back to the entrance. So there's another path to the left. It also leads to a mysterious stairway that takes up to an unknown place. So as you move along the path, you find a narrow and long courtyard lined up with osmanthus trees, 桂花树, and it's filling this air with a rich, sweet fragrance. Some of the stairs have a delicate curve showing the context of buildings has gone through some changes in the history. And at the end of the second floor alley, a stairway with an angle leads to another mysterious trip and making it even more exciting. So when we follow this alley and this alluring destination, and please pay attention to the material, the change of material between the stone beneath and the bricks above. This line of carved stone have refined the carved of cloud pattern. So when we step upon these stairs, we are actually ascending toward to the heaven, up onto the cloud, into a secret garden of the Yuantong of the Bodhisattva. So when we get onto this plate, this cloud has already been beneath our feet. So we are actually on the heaven, into the sky. So in case you got lost, we are here. We just follow this small alley at the side of the entrance and then take a small turn here to the final group. So yeah, so since this rounded path is some unique flavor, so we can look backwards and forwards. And the first view shows when we stand on the middle of the stair. And this one, the second one is from the entrance of the archway of that Yuantong Shixian play. And as we enter this entrance, we encounter a sharp right angle road that leads us to the ultimate high point. And it leads us to 2 layers of finely built platforms with a pavilion, a stone pavilion on the top. You may be confused. So is that simply that little pavilion really the climate of what we have seen, what we have built up until now? And surely it's not. So remember, what we see today now is after the Taiping Tianguo's rebellion, destruction. So what should be here is not this small Hubo pavilion, but it should be a golden peak, the bronze pavilion atop at the structure. Yeah. This golden colored bronze pavilion has 2 brick halls on either side. And together, the 3 architectural elements form a cohesive group. The image of the golden pavilion don't come from here, but it comes from the Wutaishan mountain, Wutaishan Xiantongsi. It was built by the same monk architect around the same time. And we believe that the original structure here in Longchangsi has been constructed in a very similar way in the three grouped together and with a very similar bronze pavilion, a bronze hall. So even though the bronze pavilion has been destroyed, the remaining platform and the brick walls and the brick halls, along with their refined details, still indicating what fabulous past they had. And this detail is so moving, so touching that Prip-Møller has drawn a refined watercolor stretch to describe this one. And this is the brick hall, the so-called beamless called Wuliang Dian. It's some kind of high tech at that time. And today it's already Humboldt archway used to be decorated with carvings of glazed tails with dragons. It used to be really fascinating. So here we have already looked through the most important tourist spots, all the sacred spaces inside the monastery, the central courtyard, and this background pavilion unit, the golden pavilion or the bronze pavilion unit. So in Longchangsi, the entire layout is different from what we see in a typical platform. The entire space is wounded. And so all the sacred spaces or the monk space, all the space has been wounded or replaced, but everything's still there. So besides the tourist space, there's also the religious practice space. The monks will take their daily praise in the main halls, and they will take their exercises in the halls at the surroundings, and also have their the dining halls at the side of the entrance. So this is the dining hall at the side of the entrance. Inside the interior is quite similar with other monasteries, and around this courtyard there are some so-called bantang. It could be understood as meditation hall for Luzong, for the legastic school monasteries. So inside this kind of bantang, there is a Buddha or Bodhisattva in the center, but at the sideways beside these curves, these are the bench where they take meditation or take exercise. And this is today, and this is about a decade ago when I visited first time. But it's the same. You see, it's very simple bench or bed and a very simple closet where the monks or novice could hold their limited possessions. And the life is not enjoyable, believe me. Yeah, and on the second floor, since here is a very important ordination monastery, they have spacious places for hundreds of novices to take their exercises, to take their monkhood entrance examination and practice. So today it looks like this. It's a school for the novices, and also take the same shape as the bantang for their everyday exercise. And And also they will have it at administration space and the reception space. I just saved the, just saved the strip for now. So yes, when we compare Longchangsi and the ordinary platform, we can say the space is wounded. And it is not wounded. It has some extraordinary features. So for a normal monastery, the layout is arranged along axis, central axis and lateral axis. But in Longchangsi, there are two cores, architectural cores. So, and it's controversial. There is a highlight, but in highway, in the sideway, the brazen hall. And there is a centered emptiness, the central courtyard. So they have some very strong, significant impressions on the first visitors and attract the architect visitor to figure out why it's formed in this shape. So here's why. This, as we mentioned, so this monastery is the foremost legalistic school monastery, Lüzong, 第一名山. And so, but when we check the history of its construction, it is not always so. There are very important sentence in the gazetteer of Baohuashan. It says that the Longchang Monastery flourished due to its brazen hall. Longchang Baosha yi Tongdian Xing. And Tongdian is, as we mentioned, is at the back. It's left behind at the sideway of the back. And this story back to a Chan school master, a master Dao Miaofeng from the late Ming dynasty. So I will make it rather short. So this one is a very interesting figure in the Chinese Buddhist architecture history. So he is maybe the most significant emperor's monastery architect, 皇家甲方建筑师, 皇家佛寺甲方建筑师. So he has built many significant monasteries on the Wutai Temple for the emperor and for emperor's mother, and thereafter established his fame. And also he loves the high-tech buildings at the time. He built brazen halls, iron pagodas, and arched bridges, and all huge or granted projects at that time. So to take it very short, Miaofeng Chanshi has made a grand wall that he wants to build 3 golden pavilions to send it, 4 golden pavilions to send it to the 4 sacred mountains. But so he established that for Emeishan, and he has done that, he has made it later for Wutaishan. And when after he has already built up a pavilion for Putuo, but at that time, like late Ming dynasty, the Putuo on the seashore was suffered from the pirates, from the pirates. So the Putuo monks refused to receive this golden pavilion. So Miaofeng so recount the location and finally decided to build up a new monastery in the Baohuashan for this golden pavilion. So there is the origin of the Baohuashan Longchangsi. So soon after, only 1 year after he has established the Baohuashan Longchangsi, he built up this group, the brazen pavilion and 2 brick halls group on Wutaishan. So that's why we are convinced that this group takes exactly the same shape of this group in Baohuashan Longchangsi. But Miaofeng, as the Chan master, the Chan school, Chen school master, he only finished, he almost never finished the establishment of the entire monastery. He only finished this group of 3 buildings, and then he is delivered to Wutai to finish other emperor's tasks. So the Longchangsi is left for his disciples to take. But after half a century, the monastery has already quite decayed. So a very influential legalistic school master, Sanmei Chanshi, he's also quite known and quite favored by the emperor at his time, was named as the new abbot of the Longchangsi. And at that time, so the Longchangsi has gone through a significant change. So we realize that this group is built by Miaofeng, and it's not in a line with the entire group here today. And it's only left over at the back, at almost a forgotten place, only left for the tourist interest, but not among this monastic practice in today's monastery. It's because the school has changed. The school has changed from the Can school into the Lü school. So when these 2 new abbots came into the monastery, there has great conflicts in between of this almost like a new director of the university and the older professors. Yeah. So he intentionally changed the direction of the monastery, indicating the change of school, the change of belief, the change of their Buddhistic rules. So he established this new centered platform, and for the grand ordination, which is a feature of the Lü school. So at that time, at the late Qing dynasty in Longchang Monastery, there have 2 ordinations each year. So every time there are about 600 to 800 new monks here taking their ordination. And even today, the ordination takes place once in 2 years. So still hundreds of new monks are here, enter their monkhood. And later, with a student of Sanmei Lüshi, the Jianyue Lüshi established the new stone platform, which is at this corner, and to give the ordination a really elaborated ritual. And we haven't visited here right now. So the platform courtyard is directed through, again, a very dark and narrowed alley, and into another courtyard just at here. So it has a very isolated place, because here the ceremony could be it is a ceremony for many gods, for many Buddhas to achieve, but not for the earthly person. And it has a refined stone platform, ordination platform. Today it has been reconstructed, but very much in the same shape. So in Prip-Møller's writing, he has an entire chapter talking about the ordination unit. So after talking about the entire construction history, it's indicating that how the monastery changed from the bronze pavilion-centered design into this ordination-centered design. And then he takes the entire chapter talking about the ordination unit and the ceremonies, and how a normal monk enter into the monkhood from their early decision to their last minutes. And finally, after this ordination, he describes in detail the monks' offices and daily lives and duties inside the monastery. So as we discussed, as we described, so the final chapter finally lead to this idealized composition of an ideal monastery, not only by grand buildings, not only by monumentals, but by every duty, every corner, and every routines of the everyday life. So we have already gone quickly through the Prip-Møller's writing. So it is now quite understandable that Prip-Møller's research didn't or couldn't receive a fully acceptance at his time. So only 3 years after the publication of the book was first issued in 1937. And in 1940, Liang Sicheng, at his age of 39, almost at my age, he wrote a review, criticized cruelly or ironically on Prip-Møller's work. He says that although the author is an architect in this book, the architecture of monasteries is clearly secondary and focusing primarily on the spatial layout, while the structure of the buildings themselves is not within the scope of this work. Its Chinese title, 中原佛寺图考, may easily lead readers to different expectations, suggesting room for reconsideration. And the author, as an architect conducting research on Chinese Buddhist monasteries, does not exhibit any particular notable insight into Chinese architecture and art, despite the fine printing and the large scale of the book. However, special attention is given to the monastic life. And finally, he concludes that this author is neglecting one's own field to cultivate others. 舍己之田而云人之田的结果. But after our revisiting Prip-Møller's road and his working method and his standing point and his visitings, we realizing his book, also named as Chinese Buddhist Monasteries, the title is not Architecture and Art History of Chinese Buddhist monasteries. So when we talk about monastery, there's not only architecture, building, there's a lot of things for a monk, for a practical architect to notice. So the title is actually the plan and the function as a setting for the monastic life. The monastic life is from the very beginning is entirely his main focus, but is entirely neglected by his contemporary Chinese colleagues. And Prip-Møller, as a Christian missionary architect, he has differences in faith, in missions, and in professions with his Chinese colleagues. So from his standing point, so we can understand, so today when we reviewed all his wrote, we can understand his writing strategy and his selection of Huijusi or Longchengsi. So his standing point as a Christian brother or monk, the parallel to the Buddhist monk, and as a practical architect, lead him to focus the most significant event of a monastery's ordination, therefore Huijusi. And as a practical architect and scholar on architecture, he will emphasizing or try to capture the most extraordinary space. So the event and the space, the two combination leading the Huijusi as the ever best example. It's an extraordinary, uncomparable example to study Chinese architecture. So in his writing strategy, these 4 chapters is therefore quite understandable. By this chapter 3, when he talks about the layout, when he goes through every building inside the monastery, he is describing the spatial characteristics, and he's pointing out the tension between the two cores of the space. And by looking throughout the historical documents and give out the entire construction history, he point out or expose the origin of the tensions behind the space, how the schools is changing, how the ideas is changing, how the monks and their own view is influencing, is deciding the space. And in the chapter describing the ordination in detail, he is describing he's describing the function of this spatial, the really spatial core, the space core. And in the final chapter, he describes in detail the function of the space as a whole. So the first two chapters, he is actually creating the repulsion force of the space. And by the later two chapters, he is stitching the life and the space together. So his selection of Huijusi or Longchangsi is actually the tango of tension and harmony of architecture. So make a final conclusion. So his extensive field investigation leads to a model which is an ideal monastic. And his in-depth case study leads to another model. It's a best example when we make this narrative. So in both sense, Prip-Møller is creating a model for the monastery study. So in one sense, it's a theoretical, idealized version of Prip-Møller's searching for a distillation of characteristics that presents the perfect or idealized monastery, the theoretical approach. In the other sense, the model is used as an example or case study, like Longchangsi or Huijusi, which serves as a concrete subject for deeper analysis, even if it doesn't perfectly align with the ideal. So this is an empirical and case-based approach. So in this combination of two models, he actually cites a model for us for today still to learn and study his approach, his methodology. And he is, for me, a model for me, a tutor for me, a real important person ever in my life. So this is my share today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liu, for the fascinating talk. I know we're running a little bit late because I think you probably had some, snacks, so probably not, too hurry for dinner. So I still want to take some comments from Professor Chen.
Okay, 10 minutes left. I'm not sure how much I can do, but thank you, Dr. Liu, for that interesting talk. I learned so much from it. Actually, before the talk, I read those two chapters, middle chapters, focused on that Huijusi, and you basically went over it for us. And it's so much more clear now. I have maybe two general observations and a few questions. I'm not going to go through all my questions. Maybe one or two will be enough. The title of the talk is Writing and Translating Chinese Architecture. When Lala invited me, I was surprised. I know nothing about architecture. But I see the full title, I understand why, because I'm a writing teacher, and what I teach has something to do with translation, and I'm Chinese, so there's a relevance there. So from my perspective as a writing instructor, when I read this book, I'm a little surprised by how much the writing relies on description. In college writing, we focus more on exposition, argumentation, having an argument, explaining things. But this one is purely describing, right, those spaces. And so easy to get lost, actually, when you read it. Right, here's this room, and it's a two-story room. You go up the stairs, in the second room, there's something in the back of that room. And you go out, and then so I get lost, even with the maps and the photos and everything. So showing us all the pictures during the lecture, I find that very, very useful. So my second observation, first is this reliance on description. Second is the text, how it is interwoven with the images. Right? Without the images, I think the text would be much harder to follow. So these are my two general observations. Then two quick questions. what is that? You're translating this book and publishing it 90 years after its original publication. I can understand why it was not published earlier because of Liang Sichen's criticism and so forth. But why not after that? Liang died like in the 70s, I don't know, right? So why does it take so long for someone like you to finally bring it into Chinese?
I think by answering this question, we should cut the video. Well, I think, well, for me, I think I can evaluate this book as the first ever, the most important ever monograph on the study of monastery architecture today, even until today. So even until today, most studies on monastery architecture is only on architecture, only on the buildings, so only on the central axis buildings. So when the architects went inside the monasteries, they go directly into the main hall or into the oldest hall. And it is still the interest of the architecture is historical value or the technical value attract the interest. So there's still today no one, very little, maybe until very recently, there almost no systematic research on these monasteries as this organic system. So yes, so Prip-Møller's his value has been long, what is that? Long, 就是他有点舌头开始打结了。Yeah, has been not failed elaborate 我说中文了，不行了，舌头打结了。就是实际上我们直到今天，就是 Prip-Møller 的这个研究这种方法论 ，so this methodology is still not a common methodology, and this his view, his standing point. His standing point is outside our education system. So architects, when they are trained as architects, they learn how people use the space. They understand functions, understand usage, understand life. But when they turned into the discipline of architectural history during their master program, it's just relics. There's no architecture for life anymore. It's only architecture as relics. So this kind of, so this book, I think we should not evaluate as architectural history study. It's architecture study for living. And it's a combination of life and of history and of relics and of modern practice, everything together. This is the real architecture today. But unfortunately, this is not the common sense until today in architectural schools. Yeah, so, but today, in recent years, there's a new tide for anthropological aspect. So I think it's a good time for us to rediscover Prip-Møller and his contribution.
That makes great sense. I would call this a work of architectural anthropology, probably. Anthropological architecture, I don't know. Second question about translation. Have you encountered any difficulties in translating the book, concepts and terms that you find difficult to render into English accurately?
You can't stop me in 2 hours. Well, I started translation in 2006 when I first entered architecture school. And it took me, how many years? 18 years. And I signed my first contract with the publisher. It's still the publisher, 文物出版社. I signed this contract in 2013 or 14. At that time, I think I almost finished. And then it took me another 10 years. And at that time, I only mentioning this one. After I signed the contract, at that time, I have already finished the translation of, I thought I finished the translation of what Prip-Møller wrote. Only left the historical documents left. And I saw the text from the Gazetteer and the historical record from the stelae, from 碑文、方志，就这些地方文献。I think I just need to find the original text and put it in. But when I found this text and compare it with Prip-Møller's writing, he translates the entire texture of all these plates and Ghazalist articles. I found there's a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes, a lot of misunderstandings, and lead to some almost in some corners entirely different understanding or entirely different direction of the story. So I have to retranslate his English translation into a fake Chinese text and make comments to compare these two. So this cost me another maybe 3-4 years. And then, and then the publication wrote and everything, and Prip-Møller, he's Danish, but all his book is written in English, and his theories is written in English. He's well prepared for his publication. But Danish for me is some kind of dialect of German language, and German language actually famous for its long and compound sentences. It's a torture to me too. So I think in 2013, when I thought I was ready, the text was not ready. The Chinese still in the very long compound sentences is hard to understand for the Chinese readers. And for the last maybe 2 or 3 turns, I have to entirely cut myself off from the original English text. Otherwise, I will be influenced by its logic, its treating logic. I have to work on the Chinese isolatedly and cut every long sentence into short ones and to rearrange them into an entirely different style. So, and I'm not sure if I still left a lot of mistakes inside, but I think I've worked it at least a dozen of turns of translating and modifying. And because when I first entered it, I was just the first year I ever entered into architecture school. So the entire translation has actually shaped my own growth of my academic road. Yeah.
If you really want to learn something, you translate something first. Okay, I think I can take some question from the audience.
Thank you so much, Stella, for this opportunity. I'm so impressed. This is the most breathtaking lecture I've heard for a long time, and one more of your breathtaking, fascinating research. And it's the topic of the lecture, which concerns about monastery, actually reminds me when I first took the first lesson in English of Chinese architecture that Professor Scheinhardt said. In the words, translating the word 寺院的寺, you shouldn't say temple, you should say monastery, unless you can prove it's a temple, not a monastery. And this sense of monastic, this sense of being a monastery is very much how this book makes us feel so fresh, so strange, so exceptional. For anybody who has read many books about architecture and still find this book very fresh, very different in how it changes the perspective from describing a single freestanding or monumental building to a organic complex, a living interconnecting part. So yes, and I was curious about why does this change happen. So you explained in one part is because of the functional, the very practical reason. When he was writing this monograph, in his head he was thinking about building his own missionary architectural complex. His own projects that include churches, include schools, includes different quarters. And does it has any origin or background or context from his own training in United States, I guess, or in Europe?
Okay.
I'm sorry, like I think in in late 19th century or early 20th century, in the field of European architectural history, there is also a sort of shift of interest into the monastic thing, into the like early medieval, into the monastic life, into cloisters, from the facade and elevation into the plan, into the master plans. So what's the intellectual sources or origins of the choice of how to write this book?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. I think this is very important because I didn't really spend time to explain Prip-Møller's growth or his academic background. He is actually quite unusual, even at his time or even with his Danish colleagues, he's quite unusual. So first is his missionary. So he works for the church. So he has the natural interest in how monks live and practice. And his construction project in Hong Kong, the Baohuashan, is under the guidance of a Norwegian missionary. I forget his English name, Carl Richard, I think, Ai Xiangde 牧师. And his idea is to turn Chinese Buddhist monks or Buddhist believers into Christian believers. So their missionary, they have their missionary text. So he has so I list his professional status. The missionary architect, the missionary is quite important one. This differed her from other simply architects. And then he grew up, he take his first, the first training as Mason. So he can do, by the Mason aspect, he can do the archaeology on the buildings, especially on the brickwork and stoneworks. And he has worked as archaeologist in Mid-Asia before he come to China. So he has this he has both anthropological aspect and the archaeological aspect. And coincidentally, it is also me. And I trained in two of these. And he gained his master degree, or he gained his architect's, what is that? 就是建筑师执照, a certification in Danish. And then he came to America, get his master degree. I think he's trained mostly on art history. So his education is quite comprehensive from different angles. And his personal life has also introduced his own aspect. I think the best research are all from the life of the researcher itself. So it's their life experience that lead them to their observation. It's not what they trained as something, but what they experience in their life, what their mission directs them towards something.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Liu, again, and thank you for being here and for this wonderful talk and this very interesting discussion. Okay, very important.